The following feature presentation is part of the Skywalking Network.
This is what you can look forward to on episode 493 of Skywalking Through Neverland. That's all we can say.
Episode 4? Oh no, they got it wrong. This is episode 1.
We had a lot of categories of letters. How can I get a job doing lighting? Or would you send me a TIE fighter?
Hey, can we put some clothing on this Wookiee? Does he just wear a bandolier? That doesn't really cover it. It's like Tarzan's loincloth.
And you could really see in the book how C-3PO, he kind of looks like Bert from Mary Poppins. You know, he's got all the instruments strapped to him, strapped to his back, strapped to his front.
Are you ready?
Off to Neverland.
Here we go.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome. Disneyland is your land.
When I first made Star Wars, everybody in Hollywood said, well, this is a movie Disney should have made.
You're more than just fans. You're family.
Best day ever!
Secrets love.
It's about family, and that's what's so powerful about it.
Hey.
When you use a bird to write with, it's called tweeting.
When we visit the world of Disney, we never grow old. It's a Peter Pan, Never Land that keeps us young in heart.
This is Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi, and you are skywalking through Neverland. I have a good feeling about this.
Hey, Skywalkers! If you owned one piece of Star Wars merchandise in the 70s, it was this. The Art of Star Wars. This was the internet in one book. But before we dive into this big tome, we want to welcome you back to
Skywalking Through Neverland.
I am Richard Woloski, but now everyone please say hello to my sweetie wife Sarah, who is rocking them Ewok ears.
Yay! Ewoks are so cute. They're the perfect fashion accessory, including my ears.
I know, there's one over our shoulders right now.
Yes, there is. Whoop.
Wicked's looking in on us. He say,
Wicked
hey.
has a new hat.
Yes, he does.
Ooh.
He's got some Mickey ears with the Cantina design on them.
By Jeff Granito. Yeah.
Yes. Wicked saying, hey, we got to be talking about Ewoks on this episode? Well, maybe a little bit. Maybe there's an anniversary coming up, but getting way ahead of ourselves.
Yes. We are your enthusiastic podcast destination for the many decades of your Star Wars, Disney, Marvel, and pop culture fandom. So it's time for your weekly Ewok hug. And a little sprinkle of pixie dust for our family of Skywalkers. Now we are live on the Skywalking Through Neverland YouTube channel right now. So if you haven't already, please subscribe for notifications for when we go live randomly throughout the week. And subscribing to the channel really, really helps. In fact, Richard, do we have some new subscribers this week?
Well, yes, we do. Now, last episode, we had 9,144 YouTube subscribers.
Okay.
We asked for 6 more
Yes.
to get us to 9160.
50.
Oh, I spoiled it. Guess what we have now? 9160.
9160. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Wow.
9,160. We asked you for 4. You gave us 14. We really, really appreciate that.
Now, that might have to do with something to do with our Skeleton Crew roundtable we did with both the creators of Skeleton Crew and the kids. And we've been posting reels from that roundtable constantly on our Instagram and our YouTube, and we will be posting those up until the release of Skeleton Crew. So if you want some behind the scenes info, get you all excited for Skeleton Crew, just hit us up on Instagram and YouTube.
Yeah, you did a great job breaking up all those press junket videos into little bite-sized reels on Instagram.
Yeah, the kids are so cute.
Yeah,
oh my gosh. And one of them even mentioned the girl who plays Fern. She modeled her character after Han Solo. So you'll have to hear in her reel why she did that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very cute.
And to see Skeleton Crew, that's coming up on Disney Plus on December 3rd.
Yeah.
Are we allowed to say that if we've seen the first 3 episodes?
I guess we can say it, but we can't share a review until December.
We've seen the
3rd.
first 3 episodes.
Yes. That's all we can say. Okay. Read into that. All right. Well, in this episode, Craig Miller is back as we break down the ultimate Star Wars book, The Art of Star Wars, from 1979. Now, Craig was the director of fan relations for Lucasfilm from 1977 through 1980 and had a hand in putting this book together. This is the art book that started it all. All those art of books, all those art of Marvel stuff, like this really was the book.
All started in 1979 with what? The Art of Star Wars.
Now, if you've never picked this book up, pause the show now and go get it. It has the script, storyboards, international movie posters, and it was the first time we ever saw the subtitle, Episode 4, A New Hope. That is in our book. Our book, yeah. And all that is just the tip of the iceberg.
And believe it or not, you can get one of these babies on eBay for like $30 to $40, maybe $50.
That's not bad.
It all depends on the condition, but I definitely recommend picking this up.
What's your condition?
This condition
It's well
here,
used.
I would say, because I carried this around.
It's good used condition.
Everywhere I went.
Yeah.
But the glue.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's coming undone in the binding.
Yes.
Yeah, if you see.
The glue is not the strongest ever.
Yeah, so it's like coming off
so
right
it's
there.
coming out, yeah.
Yeah, it's got little nicks and say you did carry this everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
look at that.
surprised it's in this great a condition.
I'm surprised you're letting me hold it.
Now, let's move right along, shall we?
Yes, we shall.
We are being sponsored by Small World Vacations, and they are a diamond-level Disney vacation planner travel agency that can help you book your trip to a Disney park around the world, or, I want to say Galactic Star Cruiser, but I can't anymore.
No.
Or on a Disney cruise.
Or a Universal theme park visit. If you want to plan to visit Epic Universe next year, they can take care of you as well.
We're going to that, so excited about this. And best of all, guess what? Their service is free. What? Free of charge. So head over there to smallworldvacations.com for a no-obligation price quote and tell them Skywalking through Neverland sent you and say, we want to go to Universal Monster Epic Land.
Oh, Monster Palooza-verse.
Yes. Oh, no, if we don't get the name right now, we'll never get it.
I know.
It's like Star Wars Land, Galaxy's Edge.
Oh my gosh, what is Dark Universe?
Dark Universe.
Dark Universe. That's what it is. Yeah. Okay. Wow. All right. Well, we are recording this from Long Beach, California on November 25th, 2024. So, Richard, what happened today in Star Wars history?
Well, that's why I'm wearing this shirt right here. This is a production shirt from the Ewok Adventure.
Ewoks.
And why am I wearing this? Because this is the 40th anniversary of the Ewok Adventure. This premiered on ABC, and it starred our good friend Eric Walker, Aubrey Miller, and Warwick Davis returned as Wicket the Ewok.
Tonight, from the creators of the Star Wars saga, a bold adventure of courage and daring.
We're lost.
All right, now, here's some Ewok Adventure fun facts.
The Ewok Adventures audio track is simulcast on regional FM radio stations to provide a full stereo effect.
Oh, I did this.
So, okay, so what does that mean?
It means that if you tuned into whatever 103.4 or whatever it was, they were simulcasting the audio from the Ewok Adventure.
So you'd have it on your TV.
So you can have it on your TV and from your radio, from your stereo system.
Oh.
So you could hear it in stereo.
So this is like before everyone had Dolby 5.1, Dolby 8.6.
Exactly. Now,
whatever it is.
I don't think they had different tracks, because on stereo, some sound effects are over here, the music is over there. I think it was still mono, but still, you could hear it that much louder.
Okay. Well, if it's a full stereo effect, they must have had the right and left somehow.
Yeah, I don't recall that. I just recall it being very loud because I cranked up my stereo system so we could hear Ewoks in their full glory.
Aww.
Now, the film was released theatrically in Europe with the title Caravan of Courage, an Ewok Adventure. So this is the trivia question that trips everyone up whenever we do the trivia live events. We always ask them, what is the fourth Star Wars film to ever be released theatrically?
Globally.
Everyone always says Phantom Menace.
Mm-hmm.
We never said domestically. We always say just released.
Right.
And then when they shift their brains, like, yes, it was released in Europe, also with Ewoks: The Battle for Endor, also released theatrically. What, Disney Plus? Come on, this is begging for a screening right now, being the 40th anniversary of the Ewok Adventure.
Yeah.
Why are there no screenings of this?
Oh, that would be so fun. And also, it's interesting because, Eric Walker is our friend. And so he's constantly going to Europe to random conventions over there because that movie was released theatrically. Interesting.
Now, the Ewok Adventure had a working title, just like all the other Star Wars movies has got working titles. This was called the Ewok Holiday Movie. I think they're following holiday specials.
Yeah, that makes
Ewok
sense.
Holiday Movie.
Well, it was supposed to be released around holiday time, so I guess that makes sense.
I would have loved the Ewok Holiday Movie.
That would have been cool, yeah. Well, to hear many stories about the Ewok adventure, just listen to episode 56 of Skywalking Through Neverland, where we formed our friendship with Eric Walker, the original Mace. And then check out the panel we hosted at Celebration 2022, celebrating the Ewok adventures with Eric Walker and Kevin and Tracy Thompson.
And surprisingly, this was the very first Ewok Adventure panel ever done at a Celebration convention.
Yeah.
It took us to do it.
Yeah.
Ewoks.
Ewoks. Woo.
The Art of Star Wars was released in November of 1979 by Del Rey, and this was considered the most comprehensive Star Wars Bible at the time. It had the full script, international movie posters, and fan artwork.
Our good friend Craig Miller, aka the godfather of Star Wars fandom, was the director of fan relations at Lucasfilm at the time and helped put this tome together. He is here now to review and break down this Star Wars treasure trove.
Hey,
Craig!
Hi.
So, have you accepted the title, The Godfather of Fandom, yet?
It still makes me laugh, but yeah.
If you had a ring, we would kiss it right now. Oh, there's a holiday gift right there.
Oh, yes. Ring with a kyber crystal on it. Who knows?
Oh, all right. Now we got to get into the Art of Star Wars. We've been looking forward to covering this tome for quite some time now, and I believe this book was the book that inspired me into getting into filmmaking at the age of 10 years old. I got this, and it had, once again, the script, storyboards, which I didn't really understand what those were. It had a little stage direction, so it all kind of formulated in my mind to this is how a movie is all put together. Now, what do you recall about the making of this book while you were at Lucasfilm?
Well, this was something I was really only tangentially involved with. It was put together within our art and publishing department by the team over there. Principally, Valerie Hoffman was the main person in the art department working on it, putting everything together, doing some of the interviews, that sort of thing, under Carol Wakarska Titleman, who was the head of our art and publishing department at Lucasfilm. My involvement really was that I had acquired for the company all of the international posters and a lot of the other posters, because I discovered we didn't have copies of them. And I said, well, that's wrong. And so I arranged for us to get them. And also, because as director of fan relations, and all of the fanzines and fan art that got sent in, and a lot of little kid art that got mailed in, because in addition to fansdom and fanzines and stuff, fan mail also was under me, and I had a staff who opened all of the fan mail and responded to it. And so we pulled out, some of the really cute examples of it or some of the really good examples. And so they ended up in the book, but I was not directly involved with the production of the book. It was going on in, different parts of our building while at the same time I was there doing my stuff.
Yeah,
Okay.
I give a lot of credit to Lucasfilm for putting out books that went behind the scenes. There was a couple of little making of Star Wars books, the Star Wars album, which everyone got
Right.
as well, and the Star Wars sketchbooks. They really put a lot out there to show people, show the kids, this is how these movies were made.
Oh yeah, the blueprints, all that stuff.
Wow.
It was kind of an explosion from both from some of the stuff that happened with Star Trek, although Star Wars took it much further, and the whole marketing campaign that Charlie Lippincott originated for Lucasfilm on getting, the novelization published, like 8 months before the movie came out, and getting the comic books coming out 3 months before, all that kind of stuff. So it was just an extension of all that, the novelization, not just the novelization, but the spin-off book, Alan Dean Foster's Splinter in the Mind's Eye, and then the other books that uh, came from there. So I think it was a continuation of that, and I think it was brilliant in terms of uh, marketing and licensing. And for good or for bad, now there's millions of making of books, art of books.
Yeah.
And I really think that the team who did the Art of Star Wars book um, did a really interesting job, because it isn't just here's some character sketches, here are some of these, here's some of those. They really integrated it into a whole.
Yeah,
Right.
this was very, very comprehensive. I think that was the big draw for this book. It didn't just have one thing; it had three different parts to it, and we'll get into that in just a few seconds.
Yeah, but let's talk about Carol Titleman, who is the
She was the editor.
editor. So what did she do beyond this book?
And what was her exact title over there at Lucasfilm?
Oh, titles are kind of, I don't know. From my perspective, she was in charge of the art and publishing department. Whether she had some other series of titles, um, Carol, um, at what Carol was there when I was involved when I started. If my memory's right, she was dating Charlie Lippincott for a while. Um, and I think that's how she ended up working on the publishing side of things. And then she was in charge of art and publishing, um, and that included things like uh, our licensees, whether they were books or toys, or our marketing partners, like the fast food glasses, the Burger King glasses, all that stuff has to be approved. The
Oh.
design of the toys, the artwork on the glasses. And so that would all process through the publishing and art department, to make sure if they were creating their own art, it matched, what we wanted it to be. It didn't have to look exactly like a Ralph McQuarrie painting, and it just had to be, yes, that's what Chewbacca looks like.
Yeah, to match the
kind of
quality.
thing. Yeah, it had to match the quality, and the text had to match. I remember I would occasionally get drawn in to approval of things, just because I was nerdy and knew back at the time, all the names and all of the who did what. And so, like, I remember when the first pass of the Burger King glasses came in, they had me read through it to make sure it was right, and it was full of errors, and we made them redo them.
Oh.
That kind of thing. So that, I mean, the art department wasn't just, oh, here's a picture of, Luke Skywalker. It was doing approvals, giving notes on everything, providing reference. And of course, when we did publicity, they were the ones pulling out the photos that got sent off to different publications, either generic ones, the press kit would have like 8 photos, and people could use those, or sometimes there'd be a special thing and we'd have to pull out. We need some extra photos of Harrison for some interview he did for some magazine, and so they would pull those out. So it was a complicated process. And internally, publishing was figuring out with our licensees books that would possibly sell, creating or approving the material, finding the authors to ask to write books. And again, I was only occasionally involved with this. I was not directly part of art and publishing. I was part of the publicity department. They would occasionally ask me for the names of artists or the names of authors. And I'd recommended Russ Manning for the Star Wars comic strip for newspapers.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know that you had personally recommended Russ Manning. I loved Russ Manning's artwork.
I don't believe I am the only one who came up with Russ's name, or actually Russ and also Al Williamson. Russ was actually a friend of mine. Al Williamson, I didn't know, but I knew his work. It was sort of like, obviously, if you're going to do a Star Wars comic, you want Alex Raymond. But by the 70s, Alex Raymond was dead. Alex Raymond was the original Flash Gordon comic strip artist. They asked me for someone who would write the novelization for Empire Strikes Back, and I recommended Don Glut because I knew Don could do it, and I knew Don had gone to USC Film School with George. So George would know who he was and probably be happy to have Don do it.
Yeah, I love the fact that they added, speaking of Russ Manning, some of his artwork in The Art of Star Wars, his very first panel for that Sunday LA Times, and which was syndicated all over the country, his very first panel for the Star Wars newspaper comic strip stories. Well, a lot of these people owe a lot to you, because I would never know Don Glut. I would never know Russ Manning if it weren't for you. Now, another thing I want to get into is this one of the first pages. There was the subtitle, Episode 4, A New Hope, from the Journal of the Wills. And I saw this when I was 10, and I didn't really give it much thought. And I don't know why, because this should have confused a lot of people. Episode 4, oh no, they got it wrong. This is episode 1. And what is this, A New Hope? I don't know, but I think I just wanted to get to the pictures, so this didn't really dawn on me. But this is the very first time they've ever used this subtitle.
Was it? I mean, I believe you. I don't really remember exactly.
Yeah, the first time we'd seen it on screen was for the 1981 re-release of Star Wars, when it said Episode 4, A New Hope. It's like, oh, this is new.
It was added for the re-release to make it match Empire Strikes Back, which had Empire Strikes Back, episode 5 on it. So it was added after that. So it's one of those things that people keep saying, oh no, I saw it when it was first released and it had that. And it's like, no, it didn't.
Yeah, it was the same print that had the big scene. It had the Jenny scene from the cantina. Yeah, the whole Mandela effect.
Wow.
When you saw this, did you see this when they were in the process of making the book? Did you see this Episode 4, A New Hope title floating around Lucasfilm?
No, I saw chunks of the book in production, but I never saw all of this part. That was not, obviously I didn't have approval of anything. I didn't have any authority over it. Occasionally I'd be in the art department and they'd show me stuff.
Well, So let's get into this book. Now, the book is divided into 3 sections, and the first featured the revised 4th draft movie script, and this is dated January 15th, 1976.
A day before my 7th birthday.
And it was edited by Mick Garris. Now, did Mick just streamline all those 4th draft scripts to what we see closest to the film?
I don't really know Mick's involvement. When I started at Lucasfilm, Mick, who of course has had a long, successful career as a film director, a lot of horror movies and other stuff. Mick was our receptionist in the Lucasfilm offices.
Boy, it really pays to be a receptionist at Lucasfilm.
Yeah.
If you're answering the phones, put on this Greedo costume. If you're a receptionist, you're going to operate R2-D2, and why don't you edit the Star Wars script?
Yeah, Mick also operated R2-D2. He's the one who operated him on the Oscars, for example, in 1978.
And the holiday special, right?
Maybe. I really don't know, but that seems likely. He was doing it about that time.
Sorry, Kenny Baker. R2-D2 performed by Mick Garris.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Now, this first section includes so much artwork, hundreds and hundreds of pieces of artwork. There's storyboards, behind the scenes photos, and character evolution designs by John Molo. Now, when Star Wars premiered on HBO in 1983, my friends would all gather around at my house with our copy of The Art of Star Wars, and we'd read along to each part. Each one of us would be who. I'd always be Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader. That was a foregone conclusion.
How cute!
Yeah, and it didn't really match up to the film, so I'm guessing he got different revisions of the script and then just put them together the best way he thought it should go.
Movie scripts never match unless you go afterwards and make them match, because even if no one is improvising, lines will get changed as they're easier for the actor to say, and and if it's as long as it has the same meaning, no one's gonna say, no, you have to read it this other way. It's going to be whichever way works best for the actor. And there are always scenes that will have complete new lines in them and stuff like that. And when you get into editing, things change, and so the scripts will never match. There are things called cutting continuities or continuity scripts, which are made after the film is done, and they're for the purpose of dubbing, for example, for overseas, or for cutting, because you can only print back. Now, of course, everything's digital, so you don't have to do this for printmaking, but you used to have to make multiple print masters, because you couldn't just keep printing copy after copy after copy of the film, because it would deteriorate. So you had to make them all match. And again, for dubbing, you needed to have them match to know where the lines of dialogue go in, stuff like that. And so they're much, much thicker, because every line of dialogue, every shot, the number of frames they take, and they're literally for editors cutting the film or laying in things. And so those are the only things that are going to have the exact dialogue. None of the shooting scripts will be exactly the same. Stuff gets redone, you re-edit it. Oh, we're going to drop this scene, and maybe you're going to add a line in post-production to make up for the fact that a scene is missing.
My friends were always really ticked off at me because I'd want to be a purist. You've got to read it exactly the way it is in the film. Like, Rich, that's not what it says here.
You haven't changed.
No, I haven't. Now, some of these standout pages I want to point out in this first section are these high-tech computer graphics. And these are the graphics seen on the Death Star and the Rebel base, the targeting devices.
Targeting computers, yeah. Wow, so many cool graphics here.
And this was high-tech back in 1976, 77.
Yep. And, and we looked at it on the big screen in 1977, and it's like, wow, that's cool. We could believe, I mean, even though it's a long time ago, we could believe the future graphics would look like that.
You had three colors. Wow. Not just black and white. This isn't Pong anymore.
Oh my goodness.
This is some line, what do you call it? Line graphics.
Yeah, vector graphics.
Yes. There you go.
But the fact that they printed these in the book, I really want to give them credit for something to that effect. And this shows you how much detail goes into this. Even the smallest detail, not just the overall special effects behind the scenes with Richard Edlund and Dennis Muren. We've seen those a billion times in Starlog and Famous Monsters, but here's something we hadn't seen before in all these computer graphics.
Yeah, it's really neat.
Now, another thing I really want to point out, I think this is my favorite page right here. These are the Cantina patrons from Star Wars. This is John Molo's designs, and he has some of the actors who are actually playing the parts. Like
listed on top of their character.
Yes. I guess they were going through the casting process at this time. There's Pam Rose. There's Ted Burnett, who played the Cantina bartender. Alfie Curtis, who played Dr. Evazan. Jack Purvis and the little praying mantis character right there.
Also, is Pam Rose, she played Greedo?
No, Pam Rose, she played the big bubble-headed Cantina patron.
Oh, wow.
We've tried to get her on the show once, but her internet was down.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this page really stands out. I mean, this is something that if you're working on it, this seems like a throwaway page, but because it's now printed in a book, it's indelible.
Oh, very much so. And it proved to be some great trivia questions. Like Ted Burnett, way up there. There he is right there. He played the Cantina bartender, who's now his name Were. This was a great trivia question because I would always ask who played the Cantina bartender. No one ever knew. But because I poured over this book every single day, I would read The Art of Star Wars, then my homework.
Well, and then also he wasn't credited.
Yeah, so no one ever really knew. I don't think none of the Cantina patrons or the Cantina creatures were credited. But this was always the question that put me above the rest. I knew who played the bartender. Now, thanks, Internet. I can no longer say that. And right next to him, we see Alfie Curtis, who is credited as Grubby Man. Alfie Curtis played Dr. Evazan to Walrus Man.
How funny.
Yeah, one who gets slashed by Obi-Wan.
Yeah, well, you have to remember, before the movie came out, there was no need to give most of these characters names.
Right.
It was only after the astonishing success of the toys, the action figures, that suddenly every character and every vehicle was going to become a toy. The toy needed to have a name on it in order for it to be inventoried and sold and marketed. And so retroactively, lots of these characters were, given names, because on set they were Walrus Man or,
Hammerhead.
Devil Guy or, what something that what they kind of sort of looked at. Some weren't as polite as that, and so now by the time of Empire, the script, every character had a name and had to have a name for toy and licensing purposes.
You go through that in your second book, More Movie Memories, about naming the bounty hunters.
Yes.
Now, a lot of people think that Kenner came up with a lot of these names, like Hammerhead or Walrus Man. Did they go through Lucasfilm at this time and say, hey, this is what we're going to call these characters, or did they just make an executive decision?
I was not part of that, but I would think we would have had to approve it. If for no other reason, so that it was uniform for other, it was called the same thing every time.
Yeah, the one that they did get right, the one that Kenner did get right was Snaggletooth. Now, I just noticed this while putting these slides together, that this character in The Art of Star Wars, they had named him Snaggletooth. If you look on the bottom, it says 2 times Snaggletooth. So I guess they were making 2 of these costumes. And up until now, I thought Kenner had just named him after his snaggle tooth.
Yeah, if the name is related to their appearance, it was probably named that on set.
Got it.
Yeah. Now, one more thing
So
I really
cute.
want to point out for this first section for me, I love the fact that they had the credits. I loved credits, and I'm a slow reader, so having seen Star Wars so many times, I can only get so much ingrained in my head. But now this had all the cast and crew, so I could study them. Just once again, I'd study this, then I'd do my homework.
We didn't have IMDb back then to just go and look everything up.
Was that the full credits list from Star Wars?
It was the full credits list,
'Cause
yeah.
it seemed kind of small just seeing it laid out on
That's-
2 pages.
Well, because back in that day, you didn't get a lot of credits. You don't get today. I have a friend.
Yes, kitty.
Your kitty says, "Wait a minute, Daddy, you're busy. I want to interrupt."
Yeah, this is my 21-year-old baby. So when he comes demanding affection, he gets it.
Oh yeah. So once again, these credits didn't have pages and pages
They didn't have
of
all
digital
the-
effects artists.
Or the members of the orchestra.
Look at movies from the 30s and 40s. You'll basically have the head of the department of the different sections. It'll say costumes, and there'll be one name.
Mhm.
And there'll be makeup, and there'll be one name. And by the 70s, you were getting longer lists, but nowhere near what today's lists are.
Yeah, no production babies.
Yeah,
Craft
no
service.
production baby. The ones that make me nuts today are the list of executives with the company that made the film. I'm sorry.
Right.
If you worked on the movie, yes, absolutely have your name on the film. But people who were just, vice president of something or other, director of this other thing, if they weren't really working on the movie, I think that's just, ego.
Right. One thing I do like is the addition of the actual members of the orchestra who played, because that was like always my favorite credit when watching movie, where always my favorite part of the film was the orchestra and the composer and everything. So the fact that they have the orchestra members, it's like, oh my gosh, like I could have been following all these individual orchestra members back in the 90s, but they didn't have that. I would have been like you, Richard. Well, let me go into something that caught my eye, and this would be the opening crawl that is hand drawn here in the storyboard. Now, I'm wondering, do we know who came up with that idea of the opening crawl, like being very
Going off into space?
Going off into space. Was it the storyboard artist Alex Tavalaris, or was that George? I'm not sure.
I don't know. I thought it was George, but I couldn't swear to that.
Well, seeing how he took a lot of inspiration from Flash Gordon, and Flash Gordon did have
Did they do that?
opening
George
crawl.
really wanted it to, and that's why I think it was a George innovation. He wanted it to be like old movie serials.
Right.
That was what he was going for. And lots of movie serials they were all chapters. And that was the whole thought of this was chapter 4 of a serial, like a Flash Gordon serial. And they'd have a crawl at the beginning of what happened in the previous episode that you need to know.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think it's safe to say that George Lucas came up
Yes,
with that. Like, I really wanted
think
that.
so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, another thing that struck me, similar, Richard, to your art of like the John Molo's art of all those Cantina creatures, I really liked this concept art of Chewbacca here. And how he's very chubby Chewy. Like how hilarious. And then also Chewy with clothes. Like that's so interesting to me. I just love these storyboards, and I wish they had actually written a little paragraph like, oh, how did this concept come into reality?
Well, I could think, okay, the costume, because you put characters in costumes, and boy, or Chewbacca as not costumed, that is not wearing clothes, is a lot more expensive than putting him into a putting them into clothes with just hands and face makeup.
That is true. I wonder why
Yeah.
they decided on that.
I don't know. I'm wondering if these paintings, these drawings of Chewbacca came after Fox had said, "Hey, can we put some clothing on this Wookiee? Does he just wear a bandolier? It doesn't really cover. It's like Tarzan's loincloth. Doesn't really cover much." So I'm wondering if those pictures came after the Fox executive said, "Hey, give him some lederhosen."
That all of that is before I was involved, so I can't tell you for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think that decision was in house, and
Okay.
and it adds to the alienness of it all, and
Yeah, it
I
really
always
does.
think that's an improvement if it doesn't just look like a guy in a suit.
Yeah, it really does change the whole character.
Yeah, as a kid, I never thought that Chewbacca wasn't wearing any clothes.
No.
He took off his bandolier and now he's naked. But I love the fact that they went back and used these concept drawings for current Star Wars, like Zebarelios.
Mm-hmm.
Now it looks
Oh,
like
yeah.
he's a descendant of the Wookiees.
Right. Completely looks like Zeb now. All right. And then one final thing in this section 1. My favorite part of this section, just reading this, this past week, was the storyboards. And I especially loved the storyboards of the Death Star trench run. And I feel like these really showcase the symmetry of the scene. I mean, you get that kind of conceptually as you're watching the film. I think you get it in the back of your mind, but seeing it really portrayed in these storyboards without the music to distract you or the scenes moving around to distract you, you can really tell how they thought through this symmetry.
I love the fact that Darth Vader in the middle here, he's not wearing gloves.
Oh.
All right, where's the costumer?
Yeah, obviously it's a storyboard from the rehearsal.
Someone give Mr. Prowse his gloves now. We're gonna shoot pictures up.
Yeah.
All right, now let's move into this second part, Craig. This is the part that you had a big part in. This is the poster art from U.S. and international releases, as well as advertising designs.
Mm-hmm.
I got on with 20th Century Fox because all these posters, while we approved the art at that level, we didn't create the art except for the original ones, the ones that are using the same as the US art. So working with Fox, I got them to contact all of the international offices and send us samples of each of the different designs, each of the different posters. Most of them used the US artwork laying in their own text and in obviously their own alphabets in some places. Italy famously redraws artwork for posters. The movie posters in Italy never seem to look like the American posters for American movies. It's completely redrawn versions of Luke and Leia and the other characters. Luke is much more like a romance, looks much more like a romance novel cover guy, and Leia is much more sex symbol-y, and they're not hyper realistic like on the American poster. They're slightly more cartoony, but they are definitely different attitudes of what the stars would be.
Okay.
I love this one all the way over here to the left because they added Han Solo and Chewbacca. Yeah, you see the Tom Young artwork, and to the left of that, you see Han and Chewie. I always felt like, why didn't they ever add Han and Chewie to that? One poster that really, really captured my attention as a kid was this one right over here. And this was the Dan Guzzi preliminary poster that he had submitted to Fox, but alas, it was rejected.
That's really awesome.
That is an awesome poster. They didn't totally reject it because they used it on some merchandise later on in the future.
Yeah, for those of you on the podcast, it's Luke and Leia, and they're swinging across the
Death Star chasm,
and Leia has the blaster, and there's Darth Vader down in the bottom left of it, and it's really nice movement.
Yeah,
and the Star Wars logo is a little different.
Yeah, it looks a lot like the Style D circus poster, but Darth Vader doesn't have a vampire cape.
Yeah, and Leia's costume is much more low cut.
Oh yes. Yeah, considering her actual outfit has a neck, it's like all the way up to her neck and then
up
some.
to her throat.
Yeah.
And she's wearing the white go-go boots.
Yeah.
You can see her legs out there.
Yeah,
Very cute.
It's a much different look for her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this really goes into the action adventure more than I think any of the other posters. This poster here sold for $16,000 at a 2015 auction.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know who bought it, but I would love to see the original of this. All right, now let's move on to right over here where they had a lot of merchandising artwork, including the one from the fan club, Craig. And
yes, the poster that I designed.
yeah, and then Ralph McQuarrie had painted it. How closely did you work with Ralph McQuarrie on this?
Oh, very closely. Ralph. I went over to Ralph's house, which coincidentally was about a mile from my house. But I went over to his house and we sat and we talked, and I told him what I would like the poster to look like. Obviously, I am not an artist. I didn't sketch it out or anything. I just gave him an idea of the design, and Ralph went ahead and painted it. But it was my concept, and I told him I wanted to be close on the X-wing and have it like bursting off the scene to get that much more dynamic view of it. Ralph is a fabulous artist. Absolutely no denigration in any way, but Ralph's work was to design things so that people could see them and build them and make them. And so he didn't tend to paint things in a dynamic way. His were somewhat more static shots typically. And so I wanted to get something much more action-y than he typically did. Yeah, so I designed that. And of course, those others are book covers and other things that Ralph did.
Now, since Ralph did a lot of work on Star Wars before you had gotten there, did he say, you know what, I think I want to take a stab at this alone, or was he very welcoming to your ideas?
Oh, no. Ralph was a great guy, very sweet, very unassuming. I mean, his career was as a designer working with companies, so he was always very open about
it's a
cattail going back and forth.
Getting notes and I wasn't being demanding. I was saying I just want this kind of concept, and Ralph came up with the actual image. I was just, this is what I want it to look like.
Well, being a big convention goer yourself and knowing the fans, you had a great insight into what you would want to see at a convention or through a fan club or wherever, merchandising.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just thought something exciting.
Right.
When we were doing the fan club membership kit, and we decided we would do a color poster to give out, the obvious choice was to have Ralph paint something.
It's funny that you mentioned the action and adventure quality of this poster, because now that you say that, a lot of the posters I had growing up were just the publicity posters of Darth Vader standing with his lightsaber, or Luke Skywalker alone, or Princess Leia, or the droids. They were all very static, but this was the one that really had a story going along to it.
I didn't want it to be like a cheesecake poster kind of thing. I wanted it to be something that said Star Wars. It wasn't about a given character. It was about the movie, because it was the Star Wars fan club, not the Luke Skywalker fan club, not the Darth Vader fan club.
Yeah, very
and
smart.
It was about one of the best scenes in the whole film, the Death Star battle, and all of us with our Kenner X-Wings and TIE Fighters would recreate this moment. Now we get to see it up on our walls.
Yeah. Now, I love in this book was very eye-opening to me as well. And in this poster section, the poster that really caught my eye was this Star Wars concert poster.
Yes, I love that poster. In fact, I've got one of those one of the posters above my desk is that poster.
Perfect. Yeah, this is the first time I've seen it really full size and not just a tiny little thing on the web, right? And you could really see in the book how C-3PO, he kind of looks like Bert from Mary Poppins. You know, he's got all the instruments strapped to him, strapped to his back, strapped to his front.
However, he's got a more authentic English accent.
Yes, he does. And then R2 is our percussionist here. He's got like a full organ on his back and some timpani in the front. Like, this would have been my favorite poster as a teenager because we got all the musical instruments.
Yeah, it's a great poster. You know, I have 4 Star Wars posters, it seems, on my office wall. I've got the D-style Star Wars. I've got the Gone with the Wind Empire. I've got this poster, and I've got a Chaykin poster. Those are some of my favorites from the ones we did on Star Wars and Empire.
What was this advertising? Because I know there was a couple of Star Wars concerts, but they weren't conducted by John Williams in 77, 78.
There was, as I understand it, supposed to be a series of concerts. Are you coming back? No, you're turning around again. A series of concerts that this was either going to be an advertising poster or a souvenir poster you could buy. I've heard both things said, but the series of concerts never really happened.
Oh, okay.
And so the poster never got the release that it was theoretically going to have, which is why it's also become quite rare.
The one that you have in your office, I'm sure that's an original, right?
Oh, yeah.
Of course it is.
I know Prop Store just auctioned one off that I think went for like $5,000 or $6,000.
Yeah, the fact that they didn't do this is money on the table. I wonder why they didn't go ahead with these concerts. And they did do other concerts, but they had like 2001, Planet of the Apes, Star Trek, and then they would end it with Star Wars.
Well, I mean, you know, there have local orchestras will do a Star Wars night, but there weren't any
official
touring concerts. And, you know, I would guess they would end up being local because you're not going to transport a symphony orchestra around the country. That's an awful lot of people to transport, feed, and house. So you could be picking up local symphonies, and I guess they just did them. I really don't know, but I can imagine the local symphonies just did them. Why do we need you to tell us to do Star Wars? We have our own marketing for, here in LA. We have an LA symphony orchestra that does a Star Wars or a John Williams night every year. John, unfortunately, isn't up to conducting it anymore. He used to conduct the whole thing. Then it was someone else, some other noted conductor would conduct the first half
David Newman,
of the night, and John would come out and do the second half. But the last year or two, I guess he hasn't been up to doing it. So I guess that's just what happened to it. I just know that the series of concerts never really happened.
Okay.
All right, now let's get into the final section, Section 3, and this one contains comic strips referencing Star Wars, the very first comic syndicated strip by Russ Manning, the aforementioned Russ Manning, various Marvel comic covers, young fan art, and a letter from a 9-year-old to the Star Wars fan club that reads, "Dear Star Wars fan club, I want to know if you can give me the addresses of Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, and Princess Leia. I hope you can get them because I want to write to them bad." Now, who was this Brian McGoldrick who lived at 3217 Hostetter Road, San Jose, California, 95132. And why does he get a whole splash page?
No idea. Maybe he was a friend of George's. I don't know.
I looked him up, and I
Oh, yeah.
think I found him on Facebook. I'm not quite sure, but there's someone who would fit that age range, and someone who had a couple of Star Wars pictures in his photo library. Yeah, I did a little stalking, and I did reach out to him, but he hasn't gotten back to me yet. And I'm sure he's looking at this like, who is this? Is something I had written 45 years ago. And
Yeah.
who's trying to track me down here? This is my student loan officer. Is this the IRS? I know how you can bait me.
Well, I'm going to answer this question because not only does he have this nice letter, but he's got some really good pictures, some drawings.
Yeah.
This guy's an artist as a little kid. That Darth Vader looks spot on. The Jawa. There's a little TIE fighter with like lasers coming out of it. He's got 3PO and a stormtroopers are hard to draw. Believe me, I paint faces and some of the little kids want stormtroopers and it's like, it's so hard. And an R2, that looks great.
Now, as a kid, I loved this section, but it infuriated me. Like, where's
my letter?
Yeah. How many letters did you send to that fan club, Richard?
I sent a lot on every actor's birthday or crew member's birthday. I'd always send them a birthday letter, and they'd always write back. Now, decades later, I'm finding out that it was Craig.
Yeah, I can tell you if the letters were addressed. I mean, they went to 20th Century Fox or Lucasfilm. They ended up with us and my staff. If they were, C3PO, Caro, 20th Century Fox, something like that, if it had the actor's name, it went to the actor. If it had a crew member's name, it went to a crew member. We made sure to send them all their fan mail. We did not police what they did with it, so some I know responded and some did not. Peter Cushing was always asking me for more 8x10s because he kept mailing out 8x10s to people.
Aww.
And, he wasn't used to the kind of fandom that Star Wars got. I mean, he was a popular star in England, but Star Wars was a whole different level. And so I was always having Fox London send him more 8x10s. But, all the actors got their fan mail and most of them responded. It was really only the ones who wrote to Lucasfilm or Star Wars or character names that we responded to at Lucasfilm. And character names were always from little kids because, teenagers and above knew to write to the actor, not to Chewbacca.
Did anyone ever write a letter to Star Wars the way Homer Simpson did to Die Hard?
Most people write letters to movie stars. The Simpson guy writes to movies. Dear Die Hard, you rock.
we got a lot of letters written to Star Wars, but a lot of the we got letters ranging from little kid I love you letters to people we didn't really see much of international mail, but from within the US, Canada, a lot of people wanting to know how to get jobs either on the next Star Wars movie or in Hollywood or stuff like that, which we would respond to. I mean, I had written, and I talk about this in Star Wars Memories, I had written about a dozen different form responses that, depending on we had a lot of categories of letters. How can I get a job doing lighting? Or how can I get a job as an actor? Or would you send me a TIE fighter? Or, all kinds of things. And so we would have different letters that would go out that were form letters answering those kinds of questions. And some people got personalized letters either from me or one of my staff people. And, because we we treated it as, people who cared enough to write were important to respond to.
Yeah, I'd always gotten responses back when I'd written to Mark Hamill or Carrie Fisher. Never anything from Harrison Ford. I didn't even think to write something to Peter Cushing. So now I'm very aggravated that I didn't. Now this can get very expensive for the stars. Did they sign all these stills and then bring them to the studio and say, "Okay, run with it"?
Once they left our office, I was not involved. So
Yeah. I've heard in interviews from some of the English actors, like, yeah, I'm getting all this fan mail, but it's very expensive to send it back to the States.
Yeah.
I imagine in the modern world of no one has a studio deal anymore. No actors were under contract. Back in the day of under contract, the studio probably did mail out the fan letters for them. The modern day, hey, you got your salary. We don't,
We're done.
anything else is up to you because they're not under contract.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen pictures of like Clark Gable and stars of yesteryear just at this big long table at a studio just signing everything, and someone would take it and mail it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it was, Mark's assistant would come and pick up, boxes of mail, and they'd go off with them. I assume they answered them, but I don't know exactly.
They always sent me a little still, or sometimes Richard Marquand and Ralph McQuarrie and we would go back and forth. We were like pen pals for a time, and I cherish those letters.
Yeah, well, Ralph was terrific. He was a really, really nice guy. Very, like I say, very unassuming, very obviously enormously talented, but modest about it. He wasn't like this brash, well, of course I'm wonderful.
Right.
Yeah, well, I'm glad he was able to do a lot of conventions because he could really see the admiration fans had for his artwork and the inspiration from his artwork that people took and did their own creative endeavors, either that got him into the film industry or they just did their own thing because of Ralph's work.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, well, Brian McGoldrick, if you are watching this right now, please get a hold of me because I want to know how you got this splash page and if Craig's ever sent you with the addresses to the actors.
No, we never sent out the addresses. Yeah, but I'd be curious to see where he is now. It's like every now and then I hear from people who contacted the fan club or won a contest, like Matthew Pack and those guys.
Yeah.
So it's always interesting to see where they've gone.
All right, now before we wrap up, Craig, tell the Skywalkers where they can get your books, Star Wars Memories, and more movie memories this holiday season.
Well, both books are available most easily from Amazon. You can get them there. They're also available barnesandnoble.com or in Barnes & Noble probably doesn't have them in stock in a store, but they can order them. And I am told even Walmart.com is carrying them.
Wow.
And if people want autographed copies, they can contact me. The easiest way is to find me on Facebook or Blue Sky. I'm now on Blue Sky.
What is your handle on Blue Sky?
My handle on Blue Sky is hard to remember. It's Craig Miller.
Ah, got it.
I actually joined Blue Sky fairly early on, so my name was still available.
Wow.
I'm also still on Twitter or X. I don't actually remember what my name is on Twitter or X, but
and I think you're on Instagram too, right?
I am, but I'm never on Instagram. So,
okay.
But the easiest way is to find me on Facebook, either as Craig Miller with the photo from the Star Wars Memories cover as my banner, or Star Wars Memories has a page on Facebook as well. And I'll sell the copies for, same price as Amazon plus shipping, and I'll autograph them to you or whoever you want them to. I had someone order 9 copies of the first book autographed to various friends. I thought that was a great Christmas tradition. People should do more of that.
That's amazing. Wow.
And you'll be at LostCon this coming weekend at the
Yes.
LAX Hilton Hotel, November 29th through December the 1st. Are you going to have a dealer's table there?
I will have a dealer's table there where I'll be selling the books and some other miscellaneous stuff and autographing them. And I'm actually doing 2 slideshows, one based on Star Wars memories and one based on more movie memories, which is more movie memories is Star Wars stories, marketing genre movies in the 80s, and writing animation for the last 30 years. So it's stories all about that. But I'll have both books. I'll be doing both those slideshows at the convention and selling copies in the dealer's room.
And any Skywalkers who are going to LostCon, when you go to these panels, ask Craig to tell you all about the movie The Hand. When we last had you on our show, that was our main focus. Michael Caine's The Hand. When you see Craig, give him the hand in the form of a fist bump. That'll be the secret coded message, like, I'm a Skywalker. Here's the hand.
Well, that wraps up episode 493 of Skywalking Through Neverland.
We want to thank our good friend Craig Miller for coming on the show and sharing his breakdown of The Art of Star Wars. Been waiting to do this for a long time. My favorite book ever.
And we want to thank all of the Skywalkers who listen and watch every week. And also thank you for subscribing to the YouTube channel. We have lots of content coming with Skeleton Crew coming out. We're very excited to share with you.
Speaking of YouTube, let's get to 9165 by next week. That's only 5 more.
I think we can do it.
Okay.
Let's do it. Yeah, in fact, when you're visiting, if you're visiting with family or relatives, just take their phone, subscribe on YouTube on their phone. Why not?
We know we'll be doing that.
Yeah, just search YouTube for Skywalking Through Neverland.
Now, you can also find us on our socials at Skywalking Pod. Now, do you have things that you want to share? We do. So join us every Monday at 6 p.m. Pacific time as we do our live YouTube shows where we share things that we've done that week. Then we invite the Skywalkers to come on. Glenn Stein, if you're still in the Sky Chats, Glenn's come on many, many times to show off his Spider-Gwen collection. Mm-hmm. People have come on to show off something they've been doing, a creative endeavor they're involved in,
or a holiday or like a Disney event they attended. The Turkels do that a lot. Yeah, it's been very fun.
Yeah, share whatever you would like.
Now, are you interested in our books? Well, autographed copies of Today and Star Wars History, Parts 1 and 2, and Skywalking Through My Fandom, the interactive notebook, are available now from skywalkingthroughneverland.com/book.
And make a great holiday gift.
That's right.
Now, do you want to support Skywalking Through Neverland? Glenn Stein, hey, he did this week. Thank you very much there, Glenn.
Yeah.
Well, consider supporting us through the Skywalking Force, which is our Patreon. The Skywalking Force has access to bonus content in the form of our Zoom discussions on the past Disney Plus shows. And every once in a while, we'll put up maybe Comic-Con tickets.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah, we had some free tickets to San Diego Comic-Con.
Mm-hmm.
They got used.
Mm-hmm. We do some live streams. All you gotta do is go on to skywalkingforce.com
and have a look at the options. And we want to give a huge, huge shout out and thank you to those of you who are already part of the Skywalking Force.
Now, we want to thank our sponsor once again, Small World Vacations, for their continued support. Thinking of a trip to a Disney park or a Disney cruise or a Universal Epic Adventure Land? You can fill out a Get a Quote form at smallworldvacations.com today. Their vacation planning service is free of charge. So head over there and tell them Skywalking Through Neverland sent you. And then go gobble gobble.
Now we are part of the Skywalking Network.
Skynet.
Where you can find other great shows like Talking Apes,
the Max Effects Podcast,
the Neverland Clubhouse,
Totally Tell Me Everything,
Star Warsologies,
and the YouTube shows Collectopolis and Today in Star Wars History. Now, don't forget to stick around for bloopers and other fun bits that didn't make it into the show, and let us know if you listened all the way through the show to hear those fun bits and bloopers.
Yeah, we want to know.
I'd like to know.
And always remember. Yep.
And to go out and get your own copy of The Art of Star Wars.
And
Neverland on Alderaan. Episode 493 of Skywalking Through Neverland. I messed up that one.
What were you saying?
Craig Miller for coming on the story and helping us break down the art of Star Wars.
Coming on the show. You said coming on the story.
Oh.
Your hair is...
My hair doing something weird?
Yes.
Okay. We'll fix that in post too.
Wait, no, it's sticking up. There we go. Okay.
All right, here we go. Vanity is everything.
That's why I love Pope. No, you keep on messing it up. All right, stop. All right. There we go.
All right. That's all recorded, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Hey, look at those names to the left. They are part of the Skywalking Force, our Patreon.
Become a producer yourself and check out all the Disney Plus themed bonus content available depending on the level you subscribe.
Become a member of the elite Skywalking Force at skywalkingforce.com.